Hey guys, welcome back to this thing. The thing that I've done twice before, and this is the third time. Welcome to the thing that you're watching right now. Anyway, let's talk about Deadpool and Wolverine. By the way, this whole video is going to be spoilers for this movie, so if you haven't seen the movie, don't watch this video. Or if you don't care about spoilers, I guess you can watch the video, but I'm telling you, I spoil so much about this movie. I talk about all the spoilers. So if you haven't seen the movie, I caution you, there are spoilers here. Okay, on with the video. First off, I really like Deadpool 1 and 2. I like Logan a lot. I think Deadpool 1 and 2 really do have a very consistent tone, have a very consistent narrative and humor style. I think they work really well for me. I think they're really funny. If not a bit cringe at times, but honestly, they're less cringe than your average comedy anyway, so I really do enjoy them. Ryan Reynolds is obviously perfect as Deadpool. I'm glad that he was able to make those movies after so many years of nose shoved in his face, but yeah, super good. Loved those movies. Excited for the third one. Logan is one of my favorite superhero movies ever made. Very emotional. Good send-off for the Wolverine character. And yeah, just in general, I like knowing that this is what was going to be the jumping off point for what Deadpool and Wolverine. I was pretty excited for it. Now, I will say, the one thing that was hanging me up about it was that it was being produced by Marvel and by extension Disney. I love the MCU in a lot of ways. I like a lot of those movies. I really enjoy going to the theater to watch these big event movies, and I thought for sure I was going to enjoy this movie. But, I've seen movies like The Marvels and Quantumania in theaters, and while in the moment I enjoyed watching those movies, they didn't last with me very long. I couldn't remember that many things from them other than either good or bad jokes. They just were kind of, yeah. I saw them once, I was done. I'm probably not gonna ever see them again. This one I was really hoping would be different, and I have to say, it is. It's different in a lot of good ways. Firstly, it's really fun to watch. It is just a good time. You feel good watching it, especially if you're a Deadpool fan, especially if you're a fan of the Wolverine and X-Men characters. You really do feel good watching this movie. And honestly, I was surprised with how much leeway that Marvel gave Ryan Reynolds and Sean Levy and Hugh Jackman and the team producing this movie. I'm surprised how much leeway they gave them, because I'll be honest with you, it's a lot. And they do a lot with it. And it's really funny, I'll be honest with you. There's obviously the run-of-the-mill Deadpool jokes that you've come to expect, but there were some jokes that genuinely I thought, just got me more than other jokes. I really liked the bit where Ryan Reynolds, or Deadpool, but, fourth wall breaking, pulls the camera over from the TVA and is like, "Suck it, Fox, I'm going to Disneyland," and then smashes his head through the camera. So funny. I've seen the movie twice, and that was the joke that made me laugh the most. Obviously, Gambit is really funny, and I think his whole shtick is very funny to me. The Chris Evans reveal is very funny, all his lines and the shit-talking post-credit scene, very funny. I also, one line that got me more, than I was expecting it to, and not even for the reason that a lot of people are either laughing at or complaining about this line, but when Deadpool says to Blade the first time he's talking to him, he goes, "I thought you were retired." Just the way he says that is really funny to me. Blade's response is, it is what it is. I expect that from a movie like this, and I don't think it overstayed its welcome, but it is what, normie humor will get you there. But the joke about getting himself canceled in the void is also funny. I just think the way he says "retired" made me laugh. I don't know. And then also, I think surprisingly, having Hugh Jackman, maybe not surprisingly, but having Hugh Jackman as the riff, the straight man for Deadpool is genius. And especially it works so well in the comics. And Hugh Jackman especially, those two worked so well. There were so many lines that were funny because of how not funny or not over the top they were. When Chris Evans falls after getting his flame sucked away by Pyro, and he hits the ground and face plants, and then Wolverine just says, "We don't know that guy." He's just so matter of fact. Just stuff like that's very funny to me. And like, listen. It's kind of funny, but also just kind of genius. The music choice in this movie, in these movies in general, but especially this movie, are so good. The opening, like, is amazing. In Sync as the opening song, like "Bye Bye Bye," is just genius. All the music in this movie, it's just great. Those are my general thoughts on the movie, but I want to get a little bit more specific on like a lot of the stuff that really works for me just in general. Hugh Jackman in this movie is, I would say, at his best. And I do think Logan is a better movie on paper. If you're talking about Logan specifically, I think that is definitely a better movie. But if you talk about Wolverine as a character and the utilization of the Wolverine character in a story, I think this is much more faithful to the character and works better for me, as well as I think it utilizes Hugh Jackman's strengths in a perfect way. I think this is the best we've seen Hugh Jackman as Wolverine as a character, rather than just like as an actor. You know what I mean? It's very similar how I feel with like The Dark Knight versus The Batman. I think that The Dark Knight is a better movie on paper. I think it's a better just like flat out movie. But I think The Batman is a much better Batman movie. Like if you're gonna tell a Batman story, I think The Batman is better for that. But yeah, I think this is the best use of Wolverine in a movie, like 100%. I think they use him expertly. I really like the action in this movie. Action's great. It's mostly excellent. I've got a few like specific scenes that I wanted to talk about. Like the opening scene is hilarious. Like I said, Bye 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 is like a perfect music choice. It's super engaging, very funny, visually interesting, using his different bones as different weapons, nunchucks, and busting bones through people's heads with their names. It's just super creative. I mean, Deadpool is known for their engaging opening sequences, but that one, it works very well. The car scene, the Honda Odyssey fight between Deadpool and Wolverine is, I think, my favorite scene in the movie. It's just so well choreographed, very funny. You can tell how much they're having fun, the actors and the characters. And also, let's be clear, they fuck in that car, right? Like it cuts. It like pans down and the car is shaking and they're asleep and like they're just tuckered. They fucked in that car. Whether or not they took their clothes off, they had sex in that car. But also in the music in that scene is fantastic. I think the Deadpool core fight scene at the end is good. It's a little underwhelming because it's like talked about the entire movie about how important that scene's gonna be for like you kind of get this insinuation that it's going to be a big fight scene towards the end of the movie, and it is, and I think it works for what it is, and it's inspired by other action scenes, and I think it works. It just, I don't know, like it feels like it's a little bit hard to follow sometimes, and so I wasn't quite engaged with it the entire time. And this is a small nitpick, but there are some of the Deadpool extras that you can tell aren't like played by like cameo actors or things like that, and there's like a little bit of a hammy kind of nature to it, which works a little bit, but like the bus driver, for example, like it kind of takes me out of it because he's just like, oh, you know, like it feels like it's an extra, you know what I mean? No hate to that, but it's just, you know, I did notice it. And then I think the scene at the compound where the cameo characters are fighting Cassandra Nova and the other, you know, villain characters in the Void. I think that's a very good scene, and I think it works well to flesh out all the cameos. And then speaking of which, I think there's a few cameos that I want to talk about from the movie, and I know there's a discussion whether or not these are cameos. I'm gonna call them all cameos for this purpose because I think that's kind of like what they're intended to function as. But a lot of the characters in this movie get a little bit more than I anticipated they would, which I think is great. I think it works well for their staying power for the movie, but I do think that at their heart, like they are meant to be like crowd pleasing. So in that way, I think they're a cameo. First thing is the cameo. This one's the only one that I would say is maybe not a cameo. Is Logan's corpse at the beginning from Logan is so funny. Like the way that they utilize it as like a weapon and a prop and like essentially someone for just Deadpool to just like talk to no one. I don't know. It's just used very well. I think it's very funny. It's kind of like in Far From Home when they immediately use the aftermath of the snap as a joke to be like, well, this is a very serious movie, but we're gonna play with it now. and we're going to talk about all these kids coming back during band practice and knocking people. Like, it's going to be this big world-changing event, but we're going to make fun of it, right? That's what this felt like. It's like it was a very serious scene for Logan, but this movie is going to be very jokey and not serious in most of the movie, and then you have to be able to do that, and I think they do that very well. I think in the TVA, the MCU footage, like teasing Deadpool, I think it's used well in that scene. Specifically, like referencing stuff that's going to happen in the future with crying Thor. I thought that was very, very funny. I think them like cutting away from it and like leaving us wondering like, when's that scene going to happen? Because then that's going to breed theories. I think it's just a very fun thing to do. And then obviously the Logan footage showing all the TVA people like talking and are like mouthing the words and stuff. I think that's very fun. I also think that all the alternate Wolverines work really well for me. I love the yellow and brown suit. I think it's a very iconic costume, using Hulk in that scene. Like, just, it's, you know, it's short and sweet, but it gets it. I almost wish that suit was the suit that we got, because I think the yellow and blue is more iconic for sure, but I just think that suit looks so cool, and I would have loved to see it for more. Comic accurate Wolverine is very funny. Having short King Wolverine, I think obviously is very cool. The Cavalrine is fine. I think it's fun. It's a fun scene, and it doesn't last too long. Doesn't do that much crazy stuff, but it feels a little weird. It just does. It feels a little off. Like he's the only one that's not Hugh Jackman, which I don't think is a problem per se. But it's just like having Henry Cavill specifically feels like a weird pull for general audiences. It's another one similar to Channing Tatum's Gambit, which I'll talk about in a little bit. That it doesn't necessarily feel like it 100% fits. I don't know, but yeah, it still worked for me. Like I said earlier, Chris Evans fake out is so amazing. Like having you believe he's Cap. I thought he was Cap. What I'll tell you, everyone has a different moment that they realize that that's who it was. Some people just got shocked in the moment, but as soon as I saw the full haircut and beard, as soon as I saw the way that he was designed in his face, I was like, that's Johnny Storm. That's not Cap. That's Johnny Storm. His haircut was just so specific, and I was like, you know what? That is not any version of Steve Rogers we've seen yet. I mean, it's kind of close to... Oh, excuse me. Stars. It's kind of close to Winter Soldier Steve Rogers, but still, I don't think it's quite there. I think it's very clearly Johnny Storm from that moment. And then so they were playing with it, and Deadpool was like, oh, he's gonna say it, Adventure, and then he says flame on. So funny, so super cool. I also think that seeing all of the classic X-Men characters in that scene, like following and doing that battle, I think is really fun. Having Sabretooth and Pyro and Toad and Azazel later in the compound and Juggernaut, all those kind of characters are really cool. I do wonder though, because a few of those characters are from like the original X-Men series from the early 2000s, and some of them were in the same movie, like Pyro and Sabretooth are from that same era. Did they get pruned at the same time? Do we know that? Do we know if that's possible? If they could be pruned at the same time? Because they always show one person, like, this person is a problem. This entity is a problem with this area or this timeline, so we gotta prune this person. Could it be a group? Like, what if they were just like this off-sect of like the X-Men, and they just were doing bad stuff that was just not like, they weren't with Magneto, they just were doing bad stuff, and they were like, no, your whole group, we're going on a field trip to the Void, you're all going together, let's go. Like, can that happen? I don't know. But just, I just thought it was interesting. Dogpool is one of those characters that kind of rides the line between a character and a cameo. Like, it shows up for 2 scenes, like 2 or 3 scenes, and it's cute and fun. It's just like a reoccurring character, almost like a gag character, but it still is like not enough. It's not like it's like a dog, so it's still kind of like a cameo. I don't know, but it's still very fun. I like Dogpool a lot. And then we get into the big ones. So Elektra, I will say, is the only one that I knew was going to be in the movie, besides some of the ones that are in the trailers. Elektra was one that I was like, oh, from interviews and from leaks and stuff like that, I was like, yeah, Elektra's going to be in the movie. That's pretty cool. It's good to see Jennifer Garner get a second chance at that character, even though those early movies were not received very well. Like, it's very interesting. And I was in the middle of thinking, well, they're starting with her, which is a big one. Like, who else are they going to bring? And in the middle of me thinking that, motherfucking Blade walked onto the screen with the single best musical cue in the movie that just such a badass walking in there, just staring down the camera, looking at all of us, looking at him. Man, what a cool moment. Everything that Blade does in this movie, other than saying that one thing that I mentioned earlier, everything about Blade in this movie is great. Some motherfucker still trying to ice skate uphill. It just works so well. And then obviously Channing Tatum's Gambit is very, very funny. And I think specifically the jokes that he makes about like never existing or never being born, that kind of stuff, very funny to me. He's like, I think I was born here, you know, that wanted to save but never got a, he just constantly is talking about the fact that he didn't exist. And I think that's very funny, especially in the similar vein to like the Henry Cavill thing. For people who don't necessarily know that was going to happen, it's just funny to give it to the people who did know it, but still you're giving a good character that's funny that the audience who doesn't know that is still going to be able to play off of, right? I think that's very funny. The dynamic is great between those three. They all kind of work together. They're very endearing in a surprising way, talking about, the members of their team that have fallen. And I just really liked it. I really like that whole dynamic. And the last member of that group is Laura, and I love Laura. She's the best character from Logan. I think that Wolverine and Professor X have close second and third, but I think Laura, it really does carry that movie in a way that I wasn't expecting for a child actress to do, but she knocks it out of the park, and she does well in this movie. And I think she's a perfect catalyst for the story, specifically for Wolverine's character. But I wish that she could have done a little bit more. I just wish that she had more screen time. I don't know, again, I'm not a writer for film and TV. I don't know like what the best practices for this kind of thing would be, but like I just think they could have done a little bit more with her character. I still loved it. I just wish they had more to do. The mid-credit scene is genuinely touching to me. Like I think it's genuinely touching. As like a send-off for this Fox Marvel era. I think it goes a long way to kind of tying a bow around that franchise and really doing a service to those characters and those actors and those filmmakers who made movies that just didn't really get their shot in the spotlight, especially once the MCU started, right? I think it worked really well for me, and I just think overall it was good. So that's a lot of the main stuff that I wanted to say in specific about the movie, but overall I just think I really vibed with the movie. I had a super good time watching this movie. It gave me a new sense for the MCU, like that it could be better, that something can change, that Disney isn't just going to make these mediocrity-filled movies, that we can get some stuff that matters, that's funny, that's got charm and personality. The last one that did that for me was Guardians 3, and that was because of James Gunn, so I didn't even think it was Marvel's doing. Like, I just needed something like this, and they really delivered, in my opinion. I do want to say that I'm optimistic kind of with this character and with Wolverine, and I think with the characters they're bringing over, and as far as the X-Men, I'm excited for that. I'm excited for Fantastic Four. I saw the news from Comic-Con with Robert Downey Jr., and I gotta say, like, I am optimistic, or I'm cautious about it. I think I'm cautiously optimistic because I think it can work, but it reeks of desperation, as many people have said before. It really feels like a desperate move. So I'm not sure how to feel about it, but for now, I think that at least Deadpool and Wolverine and those characters, I think they're in good hands, and I'm excited to see what else they do with them in the future of this franchise. But yeah, I would say that's pretty much how I feel as a whole. Oh wait, one more thing, real quick. Just like a one tiny thing I wanted to. This is just a tiny little nitpick, but I just had to talk about it because nobody else seems to be talking about it, and I just want to mention it. In the ending scene, which by the way I didn't mention, but is excellent, of them playing Madonna and like spinning around in Hugh Jackman's abs, and great scene. But there's some like audio in the background of them giving quotes from earlier in the movie. And some of the lines do not match up with the lines that happen earlier in the movie. Specifically the line that they use in the trailer, which is, "You were always the wrong guy until you weren't." Earlier in the movie, she does not say that. She does not say that. She says, "You were always the wrong guy," stops, and then walks away. And that's the end of the scene. Does anybody else notice that? there's also a scene where Wolverine is face to face with Cassandra Nova. I feel like there's a line there that's not in there. Am I going crazy? Like, I feel like they don't match up perfectly. And I noticed it because I watched it twice, and both times I felt confused. I was like, what the fuck is happening? Is this wrong? Am I wrong? Am I going crazy? Am I the wrong one? I have a friend who said that they thought that was intentional, and I was like, okay, you could be right, but I don't know. It seems a little weird to me. just a little weird. Anyway, that's it. Bye.